Hi, Ayden. Are you having a good day? That's great. Are you ready to hear another story? Okay, let's go. What do you see on the picture? Some children? Yes. A man? Yes. What are they all wearing? Are they wearing the same matching clothes? Yes. Let's find out why. This story is entitled Don't Pick Brian by Anne Harth. Don't pick Brian. He's afraid of the ball. Brian heard the whispers. His face felt warm. He shuffled his feet. Janie, Peter pointed. Janie skipped over to stand with Peter's team. Theo, Amy said, you're with us. Theo stood behind Amy. The group of kids waiting grew smaller. Soon Brian stood alone. Brian, you're on Amy's team, Mr. Rich said. Okay, listen up. We're doing something different today. Brian sighed. What now? Today we will run relay races. Brian heard some groans. Running? It had to be better than softball. Line up teams, Mr. Rich said. Amy stood at the front of their line. Everyone wanted to be first. Brian was last. There's Brian at the end of the line. He doesn't want to be first. Mr. Rich pointed to the other side of the field. Do you see that orange cone out there? Everyone looked. Everyone nodded. When I blow this whistle, wheet, you can start. The first person runs around the cone and back here. Tag the next person in line. Then that person will go. The team that finishes first wins. Mr. Rich lifted his weight. Got that? Everyone nodded. Ready? Mr. Rich raised the whistle to his lips. Brian stood on one foot and then the other. Amy and Peter took off. Go, Amy! Run, Peter! Peter was faster. He raced around the cone and headed back. Amy wasn't far behind. They pounded back to the start. Peter tagged the next person. Amy tagged hers. The next two raced away. Brian felt his heart beat faster. There were only 5 people in front of him. Could he do this? Would he lose it for his team? Brian would run against Janie. She was fast. The kids shouted and yelled. Brian was quiet. Brian sounds like he's very scared and nervous. He doesn't want to lose for his team. Do you think he will lose? There were only 2 people to go. Theo was in front of Brian. He was ready. Theo took off. He raced around the cone and headed back. Peter's team was still ahead. Uh-oh. Brian's stomach hurt, but he was ready. Theo pounded toward him. Brian held out his hand. Theo slapped it. Go! He shouted. Brian went. Janie was ahead. Her braids flew behind her. Brian dug his feet into the ground. He ran as fast as he could. He looked up. Janie seemed to be closer. What do you think's happening? Janie was ahead, and now Janie seems closer. I think he's catching up. Let's find out. Brian ran harder. He raced around the cone. Janie was so close. He could almost touch her. He ran even faster. Wow, he's really close to her now. He did catch up to her. Come on, Brian! His team yelled. They cheered. They clapped. You can do it, Brian! Brian pushed harder. He passed Janie and crossed the finish line. He did it! Amy's team wins! Mr. Rich lifted his weight. Now, he said, let's mix up the teams. The kids stood together in a group. Theo and Janie are the new captains. Brian stood in the middle of the group. He heard the whispers. Pick Brian. He's the best runner. Brian grinned. What just happened, Ayden? Remember, they didn't want to pick Brian in the beginning of our story. They said he was afraid of the ball, remember? And now they want him because he's the best runner. Isn't that wonderful? Sometimes people don't know what skill someone has. A skill is something you're good at. And Brian may not be good with the ball, but he's very good at running. How did you like this story? Do you think the kids learned a lesson about Brian? Are you ready for our recall game? I only have 3 questions this time. Let's see how you do. Okay, Ayden, number 1. What lesson do other students learn because of Brian? And we just talked about the lesson. So very good. Number 2, the theme of the passage is. And number 3, how did Brian feel when he heard the whispers? You did a wonderful job with the questions, Ayden. This was a really fun story, wasn't it? Well, that's all for now, and we'll read again real soon. You have a wonderful day and keep reading. Bye-bye.